They use a lot of investors use a technique that's known as spray and pray, and they just spray offers all over the place and pray that one of them gets accepted, and eventually they find a seller who's desperate enough to take it.
Okay.
And then once they tie it up, then they go look at it for the first time and they're like, oh shit, and then they grind you some more.
That's the thing that I was kind of getting at. That makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I'm selling my house anytime soon.
Welcome to the Whissel Way Podcast. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host with eXp Realty here in San Diego.
And I am Bryan, Koci, Media and Marketing Director at Whissel Realty Group here in San Diego.
What's the difference between a director and a manager, Bryan?
Yeah, so the director is more in charge of direction. Well, that's funny. But more in charge of kind of coming up with the strategy, where the manager more kind of just tell me the strategy and I'll do it.
Gotcha. All right, director.
Yeah. So, it comes with a great pay bump. He just doesn't know it yet.
So the goal of the show, guys, is to give you the tools and techniques that you need to go out there and crush it in your business. The way that we like to do this is to answer questions that you have, as opposed to guessing what you want to hear about. We're just listening to what you ask us about. The way to ask us questions is via our Facebook page, The Whissel Way. And the way to get there is go to thewhisselway.com, and that will connect you to our Facebook group. You can also subscribe to the podcast and our YouTube channel, where we put out a ton of killer videos that Bryan, our director, helps make happen.
And you can join our referral list.
You can join our referral list. We get a lot. We're in California, which is like number 48 on the U-Haul list of where people are going to. Majority of people are leaving California, so we got a lot of referrals to give out. So we would love to have you as a part of our referral network so we could send those to you. And then lastly, you can also find out about upcoming events like our Media Mayor Mastermind that we do, where we just go super deep for 2 days on video and teach you everything we've learned over the last 5 years of creating videos together and shortcut that learning curve for you so you can get to where we are in a matter of days as opposed to a matter of years. So we'd love to have you out to that. So again, go to thewhisselway.com. Bryan,
yes.
What are we talking about today?
So today we're going to talk a little bit about something that I think agents deal with on a daily basis, whether they're representing this group of people, whether they're working with this group of people on offers that come into their listings. And this group of people, they are investors. And so there's a wide variety of investors. There's some tactics that investors do that maybe the only the most savvy agents know about. So I kind of want to talk about what are the different types of investors and how can how can agents that are listening to this kind of know some of the pitfalls that may come up ahead of time to avoid situations that may be bad for their seller.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I got you.
Cool.
All right. So first up, these are typically the rookies or the newer people in the industry who are just kind of getting started that really want to get into the flipping game. And they're what's known as a bird dog. And what a bird dog typically does is they go out and they find deals. They bird dog deals. So
what is that? Do you know what bird dog means?
Yeah, it's a bird dog. So when you go out hunting, you have a bird dog. You shoot a bird, and then the bird dog goes and finds the bird and brings it back to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's what these guys do, is they go out and they find these houses and they bring them back to you. Bird dogs typically do not have money. All they have is time. And so they utilize their time to go and find deals, and then they bring them to people who have money. And in exchange, they make a fee. So that fee could be anywhere from a few $100s to a few $1,000s. But they're simply just making introductions. So some of the ways that they bird dog deals could be what's known as driving for dollars or D for D. I'm getting Thomas excited over here. Thomas is getting excited here. A couple D's in there. He's thinking some Dungeons and Dragons. Let's go. Let me get my cloak and my sword. Let's go. All right. Not Dungeons and Dragons, D4D, Thomas, driving for dollars. If you guys don't know who Thomas is, he is our producer of the show. There he is. You see his beautiful hand there.
No, you didn't. It wasn't.
So driving for dollars, what that is these guys are just kind of cruising around town. You see a vacant house. You track down the owner of the house, find out that they're interested in selling their property, and then they connect that property owner with somebody who's got money. So those are bird dogs. As a realtor, you typically want to stay away from these guys because they don't have any actual money. You want to get to the person who actually has the money.
And again, you said they're typically newer in the game.
A lot of times, that's how people get started in the flipping game sometimes is somebody just doesn't have any money, but they want to get into flipping. Well, it's hard to buy properties with no money. So they just use their time to go and find properties, and then they use that to create money, and then eventually they become full-fledged investors. So those are bird dogs. The way to make sure you're not working with a bird dog if you're an agent is simply to ask for proof of funds. Any legitimate full-fledged flipper or investor will easily be able to provide you with proof of funds. So if somebody reaches out to you and says, hey, I'm interested in flipping properties, can you start sending me your stuff? I would love to. One of the things that is important when we find a deal is we need to be able to send a proof of funds over to the seller. Can you shoot me over your proof of funds real quick? And then if they're like, that's usually a good sign that they don't actually have any money. So any legitimate flipper has proof of funds on hand. They probably have it on their phone. They could shoot you a link within a minute or two or shoot you a screenshot. And they know how to send proof of funds. They're not like taking their phone and shooting a picture of their computer screen that doesn't have their name or account number. Like any legitimate investor knows a proof of funds has to show the name and it has to show the balance and it has to be dated usually within 30, maybe 90 days tops, but usually within 30 days. Like any legitimate flipper knows that's what a real proof of funds is.
That's not how I do it. Yeah. I write on a napkin, I have lots of money.
Yeah.
Take a picture of that, done.
So that's a bird dog. Next up, wholesaler. So that's kind of the next evolution. And some people stay a wholesaler their entire life. And what these guys will do is they'll go find a property and they'll actually tie the property up. They'll put it under contract. I want to say in escrow, but escrow is not something that's used across the country. So we'll just say they put a property under contract. And then when they do put it under contract, they'll usually put it under contract and say, Kyle Whissel or assignee. Well, what that or assignee does is it allows them to assign that contract over to somebody else in exchange for an assignment fee. So what they will do is they will tie a property up at, let's say, $400,000. Then they will pitch it to a bunch of other investors and say, hey, I've got this deal tied up. I have it under contract at $400,000. Pay me a $10,000 assignment fee, and I'll assign the contract over to you.
So now, quick question. If you are an agent and you are listing a property, and an offer comes in that says that,
don't take it.
Okay.
Yeah, because if somebody writes or assignee on a contract, they're basically telling you they don't have any intention of actually closing on it themselves. They have the intention of tying it up and then finding somebody else to buy it in their place in exchange for a fee.
And if they can't, then it falls out.
If they can't, they back out and they don't care. So you want to avoid ever taking a contract that has or assignee on it because that is them straight up telling you they're trying to assign the contract. And if they could find somebody that is willing to pay $10,000 to them plus $400 for the property, well, that person might have actually paid $410,000 to property to your seller, which would have been better than $400.
Yes.
So as a agent, you want to avoid when somebody writes or assignee on there. There's other ways to wholesale properties where you can get a little bit more creative. I've done a wholesale deal before where I had a property tied up under my name, no or assignee. And I found somebody who was willing to buy the property for $50,000 more than what I had it under contract for. Well, what we did is we added that person onto the contract. So now it was Kyle Whissel and we'll just say Bob Smith. And when it came time to close, Bob Smith wired all the closing funds over. Then after it closed, Bob Smith paid me my wholesale fee. In exchange, I signed my name off of title. And he now got the property. So that's another way. And there's a lot of other creative ways. Some people will tie a property up in an LLC and they will close, or what they'll do is they'll tie it up in an LLC and then they'll transfer ownership of the LLC over to somebody else. And then now that investor now owns that LLC, they close on it. So there's people who actually have multiple LLCs established just for this purpose. They'll tie it up. And then instead of doing an or assignee, they'll just sell that LLC itself over, and then the new owner of the LLC will close on it. So
interesting.
There's a lot of creative, and those are just a few of the many, many ways to wholesale. I love wholesalers as an investor because they just go find deals, and I don't care how much money they're making. It doesn't matter to me if they're making $10,000 as long as my numbers work. They can make money. I mean, they went out, they did the legwork, they found the deal, they tied it up, they brought it to me. They can make a little, I can make a little. We're all happy.
Yep. Cool.
Next up, you have people that are doing joint ventures. A couple of the ways that I see this.
Also known as JV.
JV, yeah. A couple ways. I've done some of these myself. A lot of times what I will do is I'll go tie up a property, and then depending on how many properties I have tied up at any given time, maybe I don't have enough cash to close on all these properties. So then what I could do is go bring in an equity partner. And that equity partner will actually bring in the cash. They will do zero time investment and purely a cash investment. They will ultimately bring the funds, the cash in to close the deal. I will utilize my time. So the time I use to tie the property up, I'll then manage the project, hire the contractors, make sure the work gets done, sell the property, and then at the end, split the profit with the equity partner.
Now, does that usually, and it doesn't really matter, but I'm curious, but does the equity partner usually bring in 100%, or is it sometimes 50-50?
It depends. In my scenario, it's usually 100.
Okay.
So, but the thing is, it's somebody who literally doesn't have to lift a finger. They put $400,000 or $500,000 into something, and 3 or 4 months later, they make $30,000 back out of it. Well, $400,000, they're not making. Let's say that takes 4 months to get that a $30,000 profit. Annualized, that's a $90,000 return with their $400,000 of investment. That's an amazing return. They're not getting that if their money's sitting in the bank. So it's better than keeping their money in the bank because they made $30,000 in 4 months on a $400,000 investment. That's a good return. Cool. And then you do that, turn that money 3 or 4 times, and that works out really well for the investor. And it's a win-win because they've got money and we have time and connections, and so we could do that. I've also seen people do JVs with contractors, and so the one person might have the money and they'll lock the deal up and they'll close on it. Then the contractor will do all the work, and they'll do it at cost, or they'll cover the cost of the work, and then they'll work out some sort of profit share on that too. So now, there's a lot of different ways. Those are just a few. So
as an agent, and again, you're not buying typically homes that are as a JV or any investment. They're not buying homes that are move-in ready. They need work, they need love and everything.
Traditionally, yeah. Now there are like iBuyers and some of the other investors out there right now. They're willing to buy a property that is livable. Yep. Maybe it just needs some updating, and they're willing to churn and burn properties where they hold for 2 weeks and have them back on the market, and they just need some paint, some carpet, and some minor things, and they're willing to make $10,000 net profit, where most investors on a full-fledged flip want to make $25,000, $50,000, something like that.
Is there anything an agent should be worried about when selling to a joint venture?
You typically wouldn't know.
Okay.
It's not like it's disclosed I'm partnering with somebody, whatever, right? Like when I buy, it's all going under my entity. I never change the entity or anything. There's just an agreement that's made with the partner. There's a legal document that's put together on that partnership, on a silent partnership.
Cool.
So that would be a JV. Again, you could JV between a sweat partner and an equity partner. You could JV between somebody who's got the cash and somebody who's got the contracting skills. There's a lot of different ways to JV, but it's ultimately 2 or more people engaging in a joint venture with the common goal of making money. And then they have some sort of split and distribution of how they handle the money that's made.
And so as an agent, this sounds like a good alternate form of revenue, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, here's one of the things I learned is that when I was younger, coming up in the game, like I would make these investors so much damn money. I would tie something up, and then they would renovate it, and then they'd be like, "All right, Kyle, can you put it back on the market for me?" And I would, and then close it for like $150,000-$200,000 more than what they paid for. And I was like, and I was just happy I made my commission, but I was like, eventually I got to the point I was like, shit, screw that. I want to make the money. Mm-hmm. And maybe I didn't have the money, but I was able to tie these deals up. And the thing you learn over the years is that if you have the deals, the money's easy to find. There's money everywhere, especially right now.
You do hard money.
Yeah, I mean, you could get hard money loans, or there's just people that have lots and lots of cash sitting, and they're making like 3 to 5% a year return on that money. If you could put that money to work and they can make 10 or 20% return on their money, that's a fantastic investment. And it's easy to find that money if you have the deals.
I feel like that's a whole nother episode of how to find the money. Yeah. But okay, we're running low on time. I think we got one more.
And then the last one, there's 2 variations of it, which is just the full-fledged investor. You've got the mom and pop investor, or the person that just went to the How to Flip a House seminar. And these guys usually don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. You're usually identifiable because they'll call you and tell you they want a deal at 65% ARV. like any real investors doesn't actually have like a hard number like that. That's just a number that gets taught in how to flip house courses. So usually the dead
ARV
giveaway
is after renovation
repair value.
Okay.
So the dead giveaway when somebody's coming out of a course is when they tell you it's usually 65 or 70% of ARV. Like they just come in there right away. Yeah, if you ever get any deals, I'm just looking, as long as it's 65% of ARV, like that's a dead giveaway. These guys usually don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't have contractors. They don't have a clue. They don't have numbers like
spreadsheets.
Nothing. Yeah. So like most good investors, like I have a spreadsheet that I use. If somebody says, like even our agents, right? They have access to this. So sometimes our agents will find a deal. I'm like, here, just plug the numbers in the spreadsheet. Tell me what the net is. Like, because it's my spreadsheet. It's built the way that I run my numbers. Any full-fledged investor has that, right? They don't just guess at their numbers. They put it in a spreadsheet and it tells them how much money they're going to make, and they have a certain threshold of what they're willing to make, where mom and pop investors typically don't have that. Okay. I don't know. They just a lot of times seem to go off gut instinct.
So as an agent selling a listing, do we like mom and pop investors?
I mean, the thing is more so if you work with buyers and somebody reaches out to you and tells you like, I want to find deals at 65% of ARV, like that, or 65% of market value, like that doesn't really exist. Those are unicorn deals. Now, can you find one like a year? You might find a needle in a haystack from time to time, but it's rare to find these guys what they're looking for. But there are some mom and pop investors that know what they're doing, but that's where most people start, right? Like we all have to start somewhere.
Yep.
So, it's usually pretty easily identifiable though, because they specifically say a percentage of ARV. They don't have a spreadsheet. They don't have contractors. They ask you if you recommend any contractors. Like clearly it's your first time doing this. And then you have the full-fledged investor or the institutional investors, which they know their shit. You could send them a property within an hour. They can tell you, what their number is that they could pay. They usually either have a minimum dollar amount they need to net off a project or a minimum return on investment via a percentage that they need to make. And they can tell you that very clearly. They can give you a spreadsheet and just say, hey, if you find a deal, plug the numbers in here and send me the spreadsheet. That's how I want you to present deals to me. Like they know their shit and it's very clear what's expected of you. And if you bring them the deals, they're going to do business with you.
And they've got their proof of funds.
They're all cash, or they're using hard money, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with somebody using hard money. I use hard money virtually every single time. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with using hard money. But if you can get those full-fledged investors that have, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million line of equity, and they're just essentially buying these things cash, they can a lot of times pay more for properties because they don't have those hard money costs involved.
So now I know we're going a little long, but that's fine. I kind of want to switch it. Let's assume I'm not licensed, but let's assume that I am licensed. I have a listing that I know is an investor's going to buy.
Yeah.
Right. It needs some work. And an investor comes in and they pay. What are some things that I should look for that I'm not super knowledgeable on that an investor goes, oh, I can get this guy?
I mean, the biggest thing is don't ever take a contract that has or assignee on it. That's number one. Number two, make sure they truly have a proof of funds. Make sure it's a legit proof of funds dated within 30 days, has the name of the entity on it, all of that stuff. Number three is make sure they've actually seen the property. Like when you get the offer that comes in, check your lockbox log and make sure that person's actually seen it, that it's not a blind offer, because you don't want to put a property in escrow for your seller and the person's never seen it. And then they go see it and they're like, this is way worse than I thought it was. And then they want to lower their offer. So those
And how often does that happen?
A lot.
And is that...
They use a lot of investors use a technique that's known as spray and pray, and they just spray offers all over the place and pray that, one of them gets accepted. And eventually they find a seller who's desperate enough to take it.
Okay.
And then once they tie it up, then they go look at it for the first time and they're like, oh shit. And then they grind you some more.
That's the thing that I was kind of getting at. That makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I'm selling my house anytime soon, but yeah. Cool.
So those are a few tips. Those are 3 things that I would look out for. So number 1, the or assignee clause. Number 2, they can't provide a current proof of funds. And what did I say, number 3?
Blind offers.
And number 3, make sure they're on your lockbox log, that they've actually seen it.
Cool.
So hopefully that was some helpful information. What we want to do is shift our attention now. Every week we like to share a widget, which is something we're utilizing in our business that's helping us save time, make more money, or just have more fun.
Yeah.
And so, Brian, I'm going to let you go first.
I actually want you to go first because mine flows off of yours.
Okay. What I want to share this one is we actually have an event that's happening tomorrow. It's a movie day. We rented out a movie theater and we invited all of our friends and family, which is often referred to as client appreciation event. We have over 500 people registered for this event and it's going to be super fun. We're seeing the movie Onward. It's going to be awesome. It's our first time we've done this.
Yeah.
And in the past, we've done a lot of client events and we've used a Google form for people to register. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's easy to set up, but this is an event where there is limited seating and we have to be very careful about how many people we allow. We can't just have people showing up randomly because we're paying per seat.
Yeah, it's limited seating and hard cost.
And it's a hard cost. We have to rent out every seat in the theater
Yep.
in order to have a whole theater. So we are utilizing a system known as Eventbrite. If you have been to conferences or really anything, you've probably used Eventbrite at some point in your life. But what I love with Eventbrite is you could set up different types of tickets. So you could have adult tickets, kid tickets, free tickets, paid tickets. You can set the quantities that are available of tickets. Like right now, our event's full. It has a wait list. So we have a bunch of people on that wait list. And how that works is if somebody who has a ticket cancels it, it automatically gives it to the first person on the wait list. That's awesome. You also, at like the day of the event, we can have our some of our admins there checking people in. So as people show up, they will have a ticket with a QR code. You can scan the QR code with the phone and check people in, or you could literally just find their name on if they don't have their ticket with them, you could just find their name on a list, hit a single button, it checks them in. So it really makes it easy for us to manage this event. And the best part of Eventbrite is it's free. It is 100% free to the event host. If you do any kind of paid events, there will be a processing fee for the paid tickets, and it'll just pass that cost on to the attendee.
I think you can choose.
You maybe could choose, but why would you want to pay it? So pass that cost on to the attendee, and they could pay the processing fee on that.
Cool. So my widget kind of goes in line with that, going in line with our friends and family movie night, also known as client appreciation night. And one of the things that we're really working on is building up our Google My Business profile. One of the ways we're doing that is by working on getting reviews. If you're in the Whissel Way group, you've seen us post about it. So one of the ways we want to move forward with that is everyone that comes and checks into our event, we're going to give them these little cards. And so on the cards, there's little QR codes. We have 2 offices. We have 2 Google My Business accounts. So we have 2 different. We have one in Santee, which is in San Diego, and one in North Park, still in San Diego. So we have 2 QR codes, and it says, write a review, get a raffle ticket. So they literally scan it. It brings them to the actual review site where they can say 5 stars, this place is great, I love Whissel. And we have the option to have them do up to 2 reviews, so they can get 2 raffle tickets. And we're going to raffle off baskets that are about $100 a piece. So that's one of the ways we're working on getting legitimate reviews from our friends, families, and clients to really bolster our online presence, especially on Google.
Beautiful. Well, hopefully you guys got a ton of value out of the show today. We're going to wrap this bad boy up. Again, if you want to ask questions and have them answered here on the show, or you want to subscribe to the podcast, our YouTube channel, get on our referral list, find out about upcoming events, all of that amazing, fun stuff that we've got going on here, go to thewhisselway.com, thewhisselway.com, WHISSEL. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Wait. Before you leave, I want to share some more tips and tricks that we're using in our business to take it to that next level. Just click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Click right here.